Greetings. Welcome to episode 85 of Bible 180. We're on the Beatitudes, just stepping our way through the Beatitudes, which begin the incredible Sermon on the Mount. Today we're looking at Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. I want to begin with a story about a man who was bitten by a dog who was later discovered to be rabid. The man was rushed to the hospital where it was revealed that, yes, in fact, he had contracted rabies. At the time, medical science had no solution for this problem, and the doctor faced the difficult task of informing him that his condition was incurable and terminal. He said, "Sir, all we can do is make you comfortable, but I cannot give you false hope. There's nothing I can do. My best advice is that you put your affairs in order as soon as possible." And the dying man sank back in his bed with shock, but finally he rallied enough strength to ask for a pen and some paper. He set to work with great energy, and an hour later, when the doctor returned, the man was still writing furiously. And the doctor said, "Well, I'm glad to see you working on your will." And the man said, "Oh, this isn't no will, doc. This is a list of people I'm going to bite before I die." Right? Well, you may not have a list like that. You may not even relate to that story. But you may also have a list of people that you kind of stay away from. People who have wronged you. People who maybe if you did have rabies, you'd want to bite them before you die. If you do, whether it's a short list or a long list, if you can imagine such a list, you can relate a little bit to that story. Now, being merciful, being gracious, being forgiving, being merciful, it's not natural. It doesn't come natural. It's human nature to want to get even and extract revenge. Being merciful, being gracious, being forgiving, being empathetic is challenging because mercy and grace and forgiveness isn't fair. Being merciful and forgiving without repayment offends our sense of justice because there's no vindication, there's no justice that we can extract. C.S. Lewis put it well when he said that forgiveness is a beautiful word until you have to do it. Forgiveness is a beautiful word until you have to do it. Merciful is a wonderful word until you have to do it. Jesus said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Now, mercy and forgiveness are tied together in very important ways. Not being judgmental, not being angry, not wanting to extract revenge. Mercy and forgiveness are really tied together, not only as individuals, but as institutions like the church. The church should be not only a body of believers, but a body that embodies mercy and compassion and forgiveness. Jesus said they should know you are Christians by your love. But the problem is in many churches, I'm not just talking about people here that are listening to this episode, but in many churches, there are oftentimes people who are unchurched or de-churched, and they go for a while and they see people at church there that should love people, that should be merciful and compassionate. And sometimes they're not. Far too often, those of us who are in the church often are seen as harsh and arrogant and unforgiving by those outside the church. There's far too many horrible things that have been done and said in the name of Jesus, claiming Jesus, to kind of extract revenge or to express anger. Far too many ways in which Christians or churches are uppity or condescending better than thou kind of people. And they think, well, if we don't stand up for the truth, well, who will? It's so much better for people and churches just to be merciful, compassionate, loving, kind, forgiving. Not you live up to our standards and then you're welcome, but leave it to God. Let God figure out the stuff that we can't. Most important thing we can do is focus on ourselves. How can we be compassionate, merciful, forgiving? Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Mahatma Gandhi once said that I love your Christ, I just don't like your Christians, right? He loves your Christ. Matthew 25 is what we'll get to in a number of episodes. How you do it for the least of these who are my brothers and sisters, and you've done it to me. That is such an important ending to Matthew's gospel, saying, go out and be gracious and merciful and loving, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from punishing, as Jonah said so many episodes about God. He wanted justice. Remember how Jonah wanted justice and not mercy, but we are called to be merciful. Let God figure out the stuff that we can't figure out ourselves. Be gracious, kind, and merciful. Because what I know after being a pastor for many years is that people are not scolded into the kingdom. Nobody comes into God's kingdom after being told by Christians or a church about how bad they are and how good the people in church are. The presence of judgment and scolding almost always guarantees the absence of love. The best way to kill a church or a faith or a witness to Jesus is filling it full of judgmental people who look at the problems of others rather than looking at themselves, because judgment always says, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I know more than you do. I'm superior to you. I mean, no wonder why people run from churches and Christians like that. Few people are judged into life change. But people do get loved and their life changes. Few people are scolded into the kingdom of heaven, but many people are loved into the kingdom of heaven, because our job as Christians is to be merciful and compassionate and to love. It's God's job to judge. Jesus will say in a little bit in the Sermon on the Mount, judge not, lest ye be judged. The older I get, the more important I think those differentiations are, the job differentiations. It's our job, my job, your job, to be merciful, compassionate, and to love. It's God's job alone to judge. Like the bumper sticker says, just love everybody. I'll sort it out later. Signed, God. You know, knowing that love wins, we've talked about that several times. Love wins. In the end, good triumphs over evil. In the end, God will hold us accountable for who we are and what we've done. And don't you think it's a much better thing for us to do, to be loving and caring and compassionate and merciful, and to just let go of being unforgiving and judgmental? I mean, it might be tough to do, but Corrie ten Boom likened it. He was a Holocaust survivor. She likened it to the letting go of a bell rope. If you've ever been in a country church, there's a bell in a steeple. I've served 2 churches with a steeple with a bell in it. And once you get it going, it begins to ring and it keeps momentum and the bell keeps ringing. Corrie ten Boom says when you let go of the rope, the bell rings for a while because the momentum is still at work, but you get your hands off the rope and the bell will begin to slowly fade, and eventually it will stop. It's the same thing with holding on to being judgmental and unforgiving. If you keep those traits in your heart, it doesn't take much to keep them going, but when you let them go, the momentum keeps going for a little while, and eventually the attitude begins. The attitude of being unforgiving and judgmental begins to subside, and eventually it just stops. We just need to remember, whose job is it to be loving, caring, gracious, forgiving, empathetic? It's our job. Whose job is it to judge? Leave it to God. Let go and let God. God is the judge. We don't sit in that same seat that God does. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Be merciful today. Make it a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And until then, you take good care. Bye-bye.